Well, China's involvement in Africa is not the same as it was 10 years ago. Generally, at first, there was some concern, particularly because of the speed of the increases in investment or, for example, in Chinese development aid. Over time, and with more research being done on these topics, and more openness, both from Chinese authorities but also from African governments about this engagement, we're coming to know more about the realities of these different relations. The revival, for example, of debates about industrialization, manufacturing development, industrial policy in some African countries, not everywhere in Africa, is certainly an outcome of the growing engagement of Chinese actors, whether governments or enterprises. And there are important lessons to learn from the Chinese experience in terms of what sorts of sectors can grow, what are the kinds of capabilities that are necessary for manufacturing development in African countries. How Chinese companies, but also Chinese official agencies, manage to adapt to different institutional and sociocultural contexts. So for the first time, after many, many years, we start hearing more positive comments about the prospects for industrialization in African countries. Our project is focused on employment issues. These investments and these companies come into countries like Ethiopia and Angola. What are the employment implications in terms of quantity, job creation in key sectors, namely construction, infrastructural development, and manufacturing? Is it true or not that Chinese companies are exporting labor practices to African countries? To what extent are they adapting to the local context? A subsidiary but also important question from the point of view of Ethiopians and Angolans, what does getting a job in these companies mean for the employment prospects? African governments are very interested in job creation, and particularly job creation in higher technology sectors, moving away from primary resource dependence. Obviously, the Chinese government, it is for them important to show that companies are generating employment, and that employment is not of worse quality than other comparators, other firms, national or international firms in the same countries. So this kind of comparative evidence will provide them lessons. And last but not least is definitely labor institutions and organizations like trade unions, which are increasingly concerned but also increasingly interested in the sorts of impacts that these new investments will have on the local labor markets, and whether they can generate opportunities or they can generate possible problems that they will have to be addressed. And that can create opportunities for collective action that will eventually improve working conditions.